This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it's Tuesday. It's November 21st, 2023. This is Thanksgiving week. I remind everyone to be thankful to God that we still can enjoy some freedoms in a world that's threatening our freedoms every day. And at the Truth Central, we're here to tell the truth. I'm writing books called The Truth About Energy, Global Warming, and Climate Change, The Truth About Neo-Marxism, Cultural Maoism, and Anarchy. The truth is what we need right now is the antidote to this age of disinformation that we're living in. Stories today, I want to begin with the economy because I'm wanting to warn everybody that this Bidenomics and soft landing talk that we're getting is really pretty much nonsense. There's two stories, I think, that highlight what's really going on. One is looking at the inflation-battered rating of 401k accounts. In other words, what Americans are doing right now is rating their retirement funds, which involve taking penalties to bring this money out. There are hardship withdrawals, and the hardship withdrawals, which you have to come in and make the case that you're needing the money because otherwise your house is going to foreclose, or you've got unexpected medical expenses. These are the only kinds of things that can avoid the full penalties for withdrawing early from your retirement funds. Now, according to Fidelity, one of the big mutual fund companies, 2.3% of their shareholders in terms of the mutual funds took a hardship withdrawal in the third quarter, up significantly from the 1.8% rate the same quarter in 2022. And again, both for avoiding foreclosures or eviction in their homes or their rentals and medical expenses. What this means is people are getting behind in their payments. They're having to go into their retirement savings and their credit cards in order to continue living expenses. And there's no soft landing when this credit card utilization, credit card debt now is about $1 trillion, and the 401k withdrawals. This, in addition to we've already reported on the auto loans in the subprime auto market are exploding, and you simply have a situation where Americans are squeezed. Starting in 2024, a new rule will allow withdrawals of up to $1,000 for emergency without being subject to the 10% under 59.5 penalty. Okay, so the government is allowing people to access their retirement funds without penalties in order to help ease the inflation, which the Federal Reserve cannot really contain. These loans sound bizarre. I mean, take a 401k loans, which is a way to take some of the money out. For example, the interest rate you pay to yourself comes from money that's already being taxed, and you'll pay tax on it again when you withdraw it in the retirement. And if you don't pay it back on time, if you borrow your money out of your 401k, the loans will be recharacterized as distribution subject to income tax and 10% penalty. So it's very tricky to start taking money out of your retirement accounts. But the Bankrate did a survey that 57% of American adults aren't even able to cover a $1,000 emergency expense, which means that people have no savings left. So when food prices continue to go up, when energy prices continue to go up, and they're not reported, you're in a situation where the politics again are dominating. What the Biden administration is calculating is that they can take this next year and keep pumping enough money into the economy that it won't be until the next administration comes into power that the economic crash occurs. So they're trying to prop up 2024 so that they don't lose dramatically across the board. The pundits in both parties realize that the Democrats are poised for a huge crushing defeat. And it's one of the reasons why you're seeing so much resistance to any investigations into election fraud, because again, the Democrats have demonstrated that they've concocted various methodologies for voting that are inherently prone to fraud. There's mail-in ballots and these boxes where you just dump ballots, the not hand counting, the not really scrutinizing these ballots when they come in without fold marks, and all the other characteristics that would be normal if it was a legitimate mail-in ballot. The whole idea of expanding mail-in ballots so anybody can do it. You used to always were able to take a mail-in ballot, but when you did so, you had to go into the Board of Elections. You had to apply for it. You got specific packaging of your ballot. It had to come in voted in a particular way, a particular time, in order to be counted. There were ways to know if those votes were legitimate or not. When anybody can do mail-in voting, and there's no real tracking of who these people are that are voting, it's just inherently a kind of mechanism that any rational person thinking about it knows is prone to fraud. Now, the Democrats here are on a touchy basis because the American people, survey after survey, is saying that Donald Trump is far ahead of everybody, and he's beating Biden and any other Democratic candidate by a big margin. What this sets up again is the idea that Michelle could come in at the last minute, Michelle Obama, and say she could be the candidate reluctantly drafted to run because the party needs her. They'd have a great storyline. But when we get to the second story I want to cover, I'm going to make the point that I don't know if they can pull this off, because we're already seeing signs that, to me, indicate that the economy slowdown that globally has begun to happen. Okay, so now the second story has to do with the home sales. In October, home sales fell to a new 13-year low. Why? Well, first of all, because many people who are holding their homes don't want to sell and buy a new home when you've got an 8% mortgage, even on a 30-year fixed mortgage. It doesn't make any sense. Especially if you're close to paying off the mortgage, why go get another home, a new mortgage, perhaps an inflated price, and then have to face a huge amount of interest payments every month just to handle the outstanding mortgage? So what they're saying is that the economists are surveyed by the Wall Street Journal estimate sales of previously owned homes fell about 1.5% in October from September. So high home prices and elevated mortgage rates have made home purchases far less affordable for the middle class. This pushes many people out of the market. So not only do you have home owners unwilling to sell, you've got a whole group of home buyers that are just find that they're facing too much interest payment, too high interest rate payments in order to afford the mortgage. As home buying demand has slumped, the Wall Street Journal is reporting the inventory of homes for sale has stayed low because high rates are making homeowners unwilling to sell and move. The limited supply is a major reason that home prices are rising in much of the United States. Existing home sales in the full year 2023 are on track to be the lowest since 2011. Mortgage rates climbed to fresh 2-decade highs this fall. They fell a little bit in recent weeks, but homes typically go under contract a month or two before the contract close, so the October data largely reflects purchases made in August and September. While mortgage rates have declined since October, buyers may have already decided to pause their home searches through the holiday season. The surge in rates in October may have caused a lot of households to end their home searches for 2023, just waiting it out. Okay, now, what's going to happen is the credit markets around the world are going to crash. And it's happening in commercial real estate, where it's going to be very difficult to refinance these commercial properties, downtown office buildings, when the vacancies are this high. You're going to find that more and more mortgage failures are going to occur, and this all affects the collateralized mortgage obligations, the home mortgages, and the commercial building mortgages that are packaged into securities. So increasingly, I saw yesterday that JP Morgan, Chase, and several other banks, Wells Fargo, were all being put on credit watch. In other words, the banks are teetering. If the banks had to market all their assets right now and did it honestly, we'd have another flood of bank failures. Right now, it's teetering because until something drops that causes a cascading crisis, it's going to look okay. And people are going to keep going along with the federal government just spending money like crazy, pouring out more billions of dollars that we do not have. And the cities are in danger of going themselves bankrupt because with businesses pulling back, with fewer people in downtown areas, with all the collateral businesses, the restaurants and everything closing in relationship to fewer people coming downtown to work, there's less tax revenue coming into cities like New York. Yet New York is saddled with millions of the illegal immigrants now coming into the country and being welcomed into hotels that are paid for by the taxpayer. So at least 4 or 5 major hotels in New York City are now filled with migrants coming in south of the border. These kind of crises that Biden has created remind me of a combination of the 1973 Jimmy Carter recession and the 2008-2009 subprime real estate crash. Why so? 1973, we had a war in the Middle East, the Yom Kippur War. Now we've got Israel and Hamas. We've also got oil being constrained because, again, the West is moving in this insanity towards going to a change, a transition. That's such a nice word, to green energy, such a nice word. I mean, this is all ideologically crafted. Wind and solar are not going to replace hydrocarbon fuels for any nation that's industrialized or any modern state. The wind doesn't blow all the time. The sun doesn't shine all the time. Wind and solar have to be stored in batteries. There's a lot of loss of energy just capturing wind and solar. It's not free energy. The technology has to be created to make that energy convert into electricity. And that technology is expensive, as we know from EV batteries, which require rare minerals to be mined in order to produce the batteries. Okay, so I'm encouraging everybody. I think what we've seen in the past, get a copy of this free book. You've got to educate yourself as to what's going on. If you don't, you have no chance of really handling the economic crisis that's coming. Okay, here's the book. It's not a hard read. It's not a huge, thick book. It's free. If you call 1-800-519-6268, that's Swiss America. And I want you to talk to Swiss America. Talk to them about gold and silver investing. You don't have to have a huge amount of money. But if you can put some in, you'll have an asset that appreciates. In 2008 and 2009, when the subprime real estate market collapsed, we saw banks collapse. Then the derivatives, which are these extremely complex bets, collapsed. There's a lot on the website from Swiss America. Stories about the timelessness nature of gold and silver. There is a Walking Liberty $50 offer where you can get up to 250 Walking Liberty $50, which have a very high content of silver. And for first-time buyers, if you just fill out this form, and Chris will show you the form right there on that page, and we'll show you how to access this page. Very easy to find on the Truth Central where this is. You can, as a first-time buyer, introductory offer, one time only, you can buy up to 250 of these coins at about what they're worth in their silver content. It's a great offer, and I recommend you get a free book, and you can participate in that offer of the Walking Liberty $50. Call 1-800-519-6268, 1-800-519-6268. Okay, and I'm going to let Chris comment on it. That's the book right there. Get it. You'll be doing yourself a favor if you do. Also, people are saying I look younger these days. I'm 77 years old. I was going to be in retirement. I decided not to be because things are just so critical in terms of where we are as a nation, where the world is, with wars going on in Ukraine and Israel, Taiwan threatened with war. Get this My Vital C. It is, we're going to have, I'm having a new book on that as well. I'm going to begin promoting it. Next week, we're going to do a couple of interviews with Chris Burries, who's my co-author. This book is Live Longer and Better. It's all about My Vital C, which is a remarkable molecule. Chris and I will be discussing it. We'll have a couple of special broadcasts on it next week. You can get it right through the website. It has a variety of products. It even comes for the pets, the cats and dogs. Chris is showing you up at the top where you find the sponsors. You pull down the page, you can find Swiss American, you can find My Vital C. Okay, let's get back to some news. And Chris, get ready. I'm going to ask you to comment here in a minute or two. But the stories I'm going to cover next, let me just preview where we're going with this broadcast. I'm going to cover some really critical developments in the war, both in Ukraine and in Israel. And then I want to end up commenting on Elon Musk's lawsuit against Media Matters. This is a big lawsuit. It's very important. It has to do with censorship. And I want to make sure you're aware of it. Chris, would you like to come in for a comment?
Well, first off, we must say, and we have to clarify for people listening out there and watching, the George Soros funded Media Matters. Keep that in mind. So that has to be attacked on everything. Just like when somebody says Stacey Abrams, it's election denier Stacey Abrams. There we go. I'm actually studying for a real estate license. I've been doing that for a little bit. And yes, it's not the greatest time of year. Things go up and down. I remember back in the when we had cheaper housing prices, the interest rates were high, like in the 1980s. Remember that? Now, or I should say, a few years ago, when the interest rates were low, that skyrocketed the prices of real estate because people would pay that amount. Now you're seeing high inflated real estate prices in many areas, and the high interest rates. It's not wise unless you really have to. It's not wise to buy a home these days.
Or to sell one if you've got a
Right.
low interest mortgage. I mean, this is the problem. The real estate market is dead in the water right now. And people putting houses up for sale are doing it because they have to, one way or another. And again, the next wave we're going to get is foreclosures coming in. People who have houses at inflated prices that can't meet their mortgages. And that's going to be the next wave that hits. I don't know if Biden can postpone the economy crashing for all of 2024, but they are going to try.
Yeah, they're trying their hardest. All they have to do is print money. That's what they think. Print, print, print.
That's the solution that's the current solution. Well, that doesn't last forever. We'll cover that here in a minute. Let's talk about, I guess, should we talk about Israel first or Ukraine? What you want to do, Chris?
Let's go to Israel because
All right.
that's still in the headlines. Ukraine is kind of falling back, but it's important to know what's going on there as well.
Okay, let's do Israel. Israel, first of all, Wall Street Journal is probably doing the best coverage of this war right now. They're having a big headline story on it each day and then sub-stories. The headline story right now is that the Israeli military is getting requests from border residents in the north of Israel by Lebanon to pressure Netanyahu to eliminate the Hezbollah threat. Okay, so right now, the Israeli military is engaged in the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is in the southern part of Israel by Egypt. It's a little narrow strip of land on the Mediterranean where the Hamas terrorists, Hamas are Sunni, but they're being funded by the Shiite Iranians because they are against Israel. That October 7th attack was horrific, just slaughtering Jews. And so what's happened in the north is that the northern residents of Israel feel that they're at the same threat from Hezbollah that those Israelis bordering Gaza in the south were a threat on October 7th from Hamas. Why are they a threat? In large part because they're unarmed. The leftists in Israel, just like here in the United States, have taken away the weapons. These people are not able to defend themselves. So the story is that some 43 of these towns bordering Lebanon in Israel have largely been evacuated because people just don't feel safe, and the government doesn't feel like they can protect them. Again, they can't protect themselves. The government is not there. The government is fighting with the military in Gaza. And the Gaza war is going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take, I think, months, because right now Israel has gained positions in the north. They seem to be increasingly in control of Gaza City, which is the major city in the Gaza Strip. But the focus has now got to go to southern Lebanon, where the Hamas has retreated. The population has stayed there a much larger extent than in the north. Israel first went into the north and cleaned out the Gaza city, with this hospital being a main point of contention. The hospital has now been captured by the Israelis and is being evacuated. The Israeli military will now then move on the south of Gaza Strip. And again, its population concentration is now a more serious problem because civilians will be killed as the Hamas militants are tracked down and eliminated. Israel will also try to neutralize this tunnel network that Hamas has created under the Gaza Strip, which allows its military the Hamas military, to have command and control operations and also to bring in weapons through the tunnels that connect Gaza Strip and Egypt. Egypt has said that they will not allow the Palestinians to come back into Egypt. Why? Because the Palestinian Liberation Army, which is a Marxist organization coexisting with Hamas in the Gaza Strip, is revolutionary, and they will immediately do what they did before when the Palestinians were in Egypt, that is, try to overthrow the Egyptian government. So therefore, there's no home for the Palestinians except the Sinai Desert. And again, Yasser Arafat, who led the Palestinian liberation movement, was born in Egypt. He was not a Palestinian. He was the poster boy for the Palestinian movement, and he got billions of dollars, which he hid in banks, including in France with his rich wife. This whole racket of saying the Palestinian people are the victims when no country will take them in. They were also thrown out of Jordan for the same reason. They were thrown out of Lebanon. And now you've got Hezbollah in Lebanon, different organization, also funded by Iran. And the Biden administration is pumping money into Iran. John Kerry has been responsible first under the Obama administration for doing this fraudulent deal in which Obama sent airplanes full of cash to the Iranians, bribing them not to develop nuclear weapons until after he was out of office. And John Kerry now is doing the same thing with energy. He's going and saying, as energy czar for Biden, that we have to get completely away from fossil fuels. This is a disastrous idea, disastrous policy, and it would severely cripple the United States economically. We cannot do away with fossil fuels. Okay, so the war here is one that's going to expand. I don't think that Netanyahu is going to clean out Hezbollah right away, but Hezbollah continues to send missile attacks into Israel, and it's provocative. So the fighting could expand any day to Lebanon. The United States has got 2 aircraft carrier groups in the Mediterranean, and Iran knows that it's at risk. This war, if Netanyahu decided to attack Tehran, would expand immediately into a regional conflict. It could erupt into a full-fledged war. In fact, if Hezbollah attacks Israel as Hamas attacked Israel a few weeks ago. Okay, let's switch now to Ukraine. There's increasing reports now with Ukraine that Putin and Medvedev, which are a team leading Russia, have begun issuing statements redefining Ukraine to say that even Kiev will be under Russia's control, and certainly Odessa down on the Black Sea will be under Russian control. Now, the reality is that Ukraine is not going to win this war. First of all, the Ukrainian army has suffered massive casualties. Now the request for prosthetics, younger and older men being drafted into the army in Ukraine. Ukraine's population has gone down dramatically from something like 50 million people to about 19 million people. And the infrastructure of the country has been devastated. What the Russians have done when they've attacked these cities is they destroy the infrastructure. They attack the electric, they attack the water, they shut down the city so it can't function. People become refugees. Millions of Ukrainians have poured into Europe, and they're probably not coming back. So there's a very good article out on the Naked Capitalist, and they were covering it today. It's linked on the Truth Central, where what is striking, I'm going to read a little bit of it. What is striking about the current state of play is not simply that Ukraine is losing the war with Russia, and it's just a matter of time before Russia dictates terms, but that the Ukrainian government is acting in ways that benefit the Russian military to the destruction of what's left of its society and economy. Militarily, Ukraine is approaching a catastrophic situation. Doesn't mean collapse is imminent, but all the variables indicate that the Ukraine military leadership is now in revolt against Zelensky, and Russia is beginning to push growing Ukrainian weakness. Russia may prefer to go slow, but it's making a concerted effort to crack this one city, which is heavily fortified. But again, there is a limited ability of the Ukrainians to fight back. First, they got old weapons. Now they got new weapons that they're not trained to use. NATO and the United States have been dumping weapons on Ukraine, and the graft has been vast. What Russia knows is this is a war against NATO, and that makes the eventual defeat of Ukraine even more consequential. So the United States and Germany, Western Europe are going to have to realize that Putin is not going to go all the way to Paris, but he is going to probably take Kiev, and he is probably going to take Odessa. And Russia is now starting to show maps which show where Russia wants to keep its territory. If there are maps in this article which show that the part of Ukraine that Russia does control are largely Russian speaking and aligned with Russia. The parts that on the Western Ukraine that led the Maidan rebellion funded by Soros, that overthrew Yanukovych, who was a duly elected president of Ukraine, 2014. This all goes back to Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, taking money from Ukrainian oligarchs and undermining, saying the corruption was the Clinton Foundation, while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, was gaining money from all kinds of oligarchs around the world who wanted power. That's why Hillary had her own separate email server, something we've already almost forgotten about. There's been so many catastrophic changes, and I think the CIA is constructing a series of one after another shocks that jar the American people. And we forget about the corruption of the leaders, Hillary Clinton with the Clinton Foundation, Biden with his massive corruption, taking money with his son, Hunter Biden, from Ukraine, from Russia, from China. Our politics, I wrote a book in 2011, America for Sale, and that's what's happened. So Ukraine is facing a demographic disaster, which is that the pre-war population of 43 million has gone to 19 million, and they're suffering a high level of the war survivors, these who have fought the war, being now debilitated, so that the Wall Street Journal reported months ago that orders for prosthetics might be as high as 50,000 in Ukraine. And that was before this famed counteroffensive that failed got going. I'm finding that Russia, I think, will play this out to Russia's advantage. And the reason it's gone off the news is because the West wants to prolong the survival of Ukraine to keep the corruption going. Ukraine is famous for money laundering and graft, and that's going to continue for a while. I think so. If we compare these two, I think that the war in Israel will go on for several months. And the war in Ukraine is going to continue to go on through 2024. But both of these are going to have to face endgames, or they're going to expand into regional conflicts. And I think the Biden administration through 2024 does not want these wars expanding. So we'll probably see an attempt to prolong both of them without either one of them getting to a critical stage where Iran gets involved or where Russia declares that this is a war against NATO and begins taking all of Ukraine and declaring it all part of Russia. So we're both economically and in terms of the military, we are in difficult times, and it's not going to get better in the immediate. Last story, Elon Musk has now sued Media Matters. Media Matters, I've been fighting for 20 years. They've been funded by Soros, and what they are is a hard left attempt to censor anybody. They were attacking me for years. I think they've backed off largely because they have other people to attack right now, and I'm not on their radar as much as I was. This is a group that tracks everything conservatives does, and then says that, like the Southern Poverty Law Center, brands you a racist, brands you all kinds of names. They argue with everything you say. They attempt to have media not put you back on the air. They want to block you from being on the air. Well, Elon Musk decided to file suit against his ex-corporation, formerly Twitter. Again, and they filed suit in the Northern District of Texas, Fort Worth Division, alleging that Media Matters report here was malicious because what Media Matters said was that high-grade advertising was being placed next to white supremacist comments posted on X. And that threatened a group of advertisers to say they were going to pull out of X, which is what Media Matters wanted to happen. They wanted to punish Elon Musk economically if Elon Musk continued to give position to a number of conservatives that Media Matters wanted to censor. Now, the judge here is a judge appointed by Trump, and the judge in Texas is one who ordered the FDA to release the Pfizer files, and he overruled the FDA to expedite the release of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine documents. The FDA did not want to release those because it would show that the vaccines were not tested and there were issues with regards to their side effects. This judge blocked Joe Biden's loan forgiveness when he struck down Biden's student loan forgiveness program, ruling that it was an overreach of executive authority, usurping Congress's power to make laws regarding federal spending. And the judge also ruled that Texas cannot ban 18 to 20-year-olds from carrying handguns. Ruled that a Texas law prohibiting 18 to 20-year-olds from carrying handguns in public was unconstitutional. So Media Matters was seeking to pressure advertisers to abandon the X platform based on the report that their advertisements would appear next to white nationalist hashtags. Musk has vehemently denied the truth of that allegation, and he's going to press it in court. But what Media Matters was doing was trying to end campaigns for advertising from IBM, Apple, Disney, Lionsgate, and Paramount. That would have hurt economically X, and Musk is fighting back. So we are still hot into the culture war, where the left is doing everything they can to suppress free speech, and the CIA and the left are working together to make sure that they craft news stories that construct an artificial reality for the American people to buy as the true reality. Namely, that Biden economics is going to have a soft landing, everything's okay economically, don't worry, and just keep spending. Well, there comes a point where the American people can't keep spending on credit cards or taking money out of their 401ks or retirement accounts in order to pay current bills. This is going to come to roost soon. Chris, any comments before we wrap up here?
Yes, to expand on this, Twitter executive Joe Benarock actually posted in opposition to what Media Matters was trying to pull. Here is what he said, and here's something that's the big difference between Elon Musk's Twitter and the Twitter of old. Elon Musk's Twitter will tell you what's going on. They'll give you a little bit of hint what's going on behind the scenes. Anyway, let's go with this. Joe Benarock said that Media Matters deliberately manipulated the numbers. The quote was, Media Matters created 3 accounts and followed 30 similar to the ones in said article. They then constantly refreshed the timeline of posts 13 times the number of ads served to this user as opposed to the median. He actually had this checked. See, they get to go back and check and actually tell you what their tactics are. 50 impressions served against the content in the article out of 5.5 billion served the whole day. That technically, and as he puts it, points to how effectively the model avoids that kind of content for advertisers. So, what Media Matters proved is they're full of, and the fact is X is doing a good job trying to keep advertisers out of this kind of content. The other thing is they do not, and the way Twitter advertises is they do not post articles, or they don't post articles or advertisements adjacent to posts or anything like that, or any videos people put out. They put them in the middle of feeds where they technically might wind up somewhere. But the fact is, Twitter or X is telling you, hey, we still watch out for this. We might slip a few against the cracks, but the Media Matters of the world and the Oliver Darcys of the world trying to pull a fast one on the rest of the public, it's not going to fly at this point.
Well, I think this is a serious lawsuit because it will demonstrate, again, the lying tactics of the left and how easily intimidated the corporate world is against being called racist or sexist or any of these other terms that the left has invented in order to bully its position into the sole limelight of the public discourse. Now, if we allow this to happen, we're going to be censored. First Amendment is going to die, and the left would like to kill this First Amendment. And these are not people that can be argued with. It's one of the things that in this win in Argentina, which is, I think, historic, this Milei coming in and defeating the traditional candidates in Argentina, and he is outspoken in terms of saying the climate, global warming is just nonsense. This ideological attempt to weaken countries like Argentina. In Argentina, the inflation is hyperinflation. You have to bring a pile of cash to be able to buy a hamburger. And I'm encouraging people to get this free book, How the Coming Global Crash Will Create a Historic Gold Rush. Dean Heskin and I co-authored it. Dean heads Swiss America. The economics here are clear if you really study the data. The toll-free number to get a free copy of this book is 1-800-519-6268. And while you're calling 1-800-519-6268, also talk to Swiss America about this Walking Liberty $50 offer where you can get these coins for the value they have in their silver. It's a loss leader offer to get new people talking to new prospects, talking to Swiss America, and about getting their retirement savings out of the stock market. Stock market can and will crash. It's just a matter of time until all this credit extension, the $34 billion debt turns into a $35 billion debt, turns into a $40 billion debt. The rate at which that's happening is accelerating. When you have this kind of a cycle going on in Argentina, you've already got hyperinflation. It could happen here. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. And we are going to get the judgment of God. It's in the process of unfolding. We're seeing it in wars. We're seeing it in disease. We're seeing the corruption of our institutions. Everywhere you look, we're seeing the press corrupted. We're seeing the White House corrupted. We've got a president who seems to be suffering senior dementia, and yet his family's engaged in massive documented corruption, and no one does anything about it because the Justice Department's gone woke. Politically, is attacking anyone who supports Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's got all these indictments against him, and Biden walks scot-free. Okay, so political justice is not justice. A propped up economy floating on debt, printed dollars, is not viable. It's not strong. The reality of inflation is undermining the wealth of the middle class. And this is all intentional, because what the left intends to do, and if you'll just read what some of the things I've written, I'm encouraging people, take a look at this new book, Truth About. I explained how the neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy, which has led to this woke insanity, is designed to destroy America. It's a conscious plan. And the truth about neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy will let you in on how it has been crafted over really 200 or 300 years to take down capitalism in order to enslave the world in socialism. That will only benefit the few oligarchs who are at the top of socialism. And what socialism has done, this book demonstrates, did it both in Russia and China, has killed millions of people, destroy the societies with cultural revolutions, and produce anarchy in order to give control to a few who want the wealth for themselves. It's an old idea. My third book in this, I call this the Great Awakening trilogy. The third book will be about transhumanism, where they're going. They think that their few oligarchs who survive will be able to merge with machines and become superhuman. Nietzsche, Übermensch. It's a war against God. And it's not a good idea when human beings turn against God and become atheist or hate God, or still believe in God but hate him. We turn into beasts. And we will go through a very difficult time because we have gotten away from God. I actually think that the Spanish immigrants coming here who still believe in God, have families, may be the ultimate salvation of this country. In the end, God wins. God created this world, and God can take it away any day God decides to do so. The remedy in the Bible is 2 Chronicles 7:14. We need to get on our knees and ask God's forgiveness for getting to this place, killing millions of babies after Roe v. Wade, cutting them to pieces, chopping them up in the womb, and evidently selling their body parts for what wants to be sold on the stem cell or other body part markets. It's savage. At the same time, we have taken God out of the schools, out of our homes, of the public squares. We need to remedy this. And a world that comes back to God, well, what 2 Chronicles 7:14 says is that if we do get on our knees and ask for forgiveness, God will hear our prayer and heal our land. We're at the point where God's intervention is going to happen, in the process of happening. But I cannot believe and do not believe that God created the human race to fail. We'll get through this, and the end result may be that people will understand the need to come back to God. Dr. Jerome Corsi today is November 21st, 2023. Tomorrow is November 22nd. It will be the 60th anniversary of John Kennedy's assassination. We're getting ready to print a book that I think will be shocking to the nation. I've co-authored it with David Mantic on the JFK assassination. It will be out possibly in December, certainly early next year. It's thetruthcentral.com. We're broadcasting every weekday. Please join us again tomorrow, Wednesday, 22nd of November, the day before Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining us. God bless.